Hi everyone, this is Jeff from Jeff's Flight Log. This is another in a series of videos covering my trip to southern Utah last fall. On this map, you can see my starting point at Hidden Splendor in the bottom right hand corner. From there, I followed Muddy Creek to the northwest and into a canyon that crosses the San Rafael Swell. Part 2 of this video, which you can go to via the link above, covers my return flight. I was camped at Hidden Splendor Airport with two flying friends from Colorado. You can see their planes warming up on the runway below. They were heading home today, while I was going to hang around a bit more in the area, and I was glad I did. The water flowing on the right, and at the bottom of the canyon beyond is Muddy Creek, the same flow of water I would follow upstream and through the swell later in this flight. I will cover Hidden Splendor, including landing and taking off from its airstrip in a future video. I made one final farewell pass over my friend's planes before heading north about 7 miles to Hondu Arch, the largest arch in the San Rafael Swell. The arch was thought to resemble the loop of rope at the end of a cowboy's lariat, which is called a hondu. I guess that makes sense. Anyway, that's how the arch got its name. I've read that the hole in the rock is about 200 feet tall, so looking at it here, I would guess it to be about 50 feet wide. I have seen photos of the arch taken from the dirt road below, but this view from my trike was much better, and probably the only way to get a decent look at the arch. I left the arch and followed Muddy Creek north and around the corner to the mouth of Muddy Creek Canyon. Although I had followed this canyon through the swell on a sunset flight yesterday afternoon, I was still wary of exploring this canyon, which was, for the most part, unknown to me. On my trip, the canyon had splintered into a myriad of smaller canyons, most of which end in a dead-end cliff. How could I safely explore this canyon in my trike? Well, I knew there were no spectacular waterfalls on Muddy Creek. The one safe path would follow the creek as it eroded through the bulge of sandstone called the Swell, all the way from its headwaters in the mountains to the west. So as long as I followed the flow of water, I would not end up in a dead-end canyon with my path blocked by a wall of rock. I was a little more relaxed on this morning's flight as the conditions were dead calm, in contrast to the slight downstream flow of air blowing through the canyon at sunset yesterday. I had also become alerted to the more intimidating turns and had figured out the follow the water strategy. I cut across these first few meanders before getting into the groove of following every turn of the canyon. It was, for the most part, a very fun and relaxing flight, similar to a drive in my car along a winding mountain road. Actually, much more relaxing since I had great visibility and didn't have to worry about any oncoming traffic. The only formation that has a name on the map is this cut-off island butte on the left. It's called the merry-go-round. When I come back here on a future trip, I'll be sure to take a spin around the merry-go-round. This is where the interactive 360 VR camera really shows its power. You really don't want to hear me pointing out every cool little pillar or hidden window on the canyon walls. Swing your viewpoint around as we fly up the canyon, and you'll see something new every time you take this trip up the canyon with me. If you are watching this video on a computer, zoom out. The wraparound effect is very powerful. That is definitely a mysterious canyon on the right, under the pointed tower. I wonder what is back there. I looked over to this cul-de-sac with the wedge-shaped island near the stream. Somewhere below is a herd of wild horses. I don't know where they are now, but they do come out to greet me when I return down the canyon later. I left the pocket and followed the watercourse along the straight section of canyon, heading to a large wall of sandstone that appears to be blocking my way. I looked ahead, around the corner to the right, and saw a huge wall of rock that was so impressive on yesterday afternoon's flight. I gave it a simple name, the Big Wall. I was much lower on this second trip through the canyon and really felt the presence of this massive wall of rock on my right side. I felt no need to scrape my wingtip along the big wall, so I turned before it, hopping over this low ridge. This canyon is perfectly sized for this type of flying, just the right width so I don't feel boxed in, and shallow enough that I can climb and escape by going to full throttle if I see any difficulties ahead or just feel some pressure on my comfort zone. The patterns on the sandstone wall on the right look like abstract drawings of animals. I seriously doubt they are man-made, but who knows? I dropped down a little to follow this long, straight stretch of canyon. Mentally, I hopped from one clear, sandy stretch of canyon bottom to the next, my designated emergency landing spot. Since my engine had been running flawlessly for the past 45 minutes, I did not obsess about this too much. I was more concerned about possible gusts of winds or rotors generated by katabatic or downslope winds coming through the canyon. As long as the leaves on the cottonwood trees remained still, I would be all right. Another huge wall of rock came into view on the right. The front part is covered with more abstract patterns, including a large script X. The X was a useful landmark to distinguish this wall from the big wall that we had encountered earlier. Up ahead, a huge crack penetrates into the canyon wall on the right side, with a similar crack exactly lined up with it on the opposite side. It probably started as a geologic fault in the sandstone that wind and rain enlarged over thousands of years. Around the next bend is a second crack with what almost looks like a road coming out of the Slot Canyon. This is the entrance to Poncho Wash, a tributary canyon that divides and extends another mile to the northeast. In a minute, we'll be able to look into the far end of this Slot Canyon. On the right side, near the yellow cottonwood tree and the sharp kink in the creek, is a dip in the canyon wall. As we go by, look into the dip and you'll be able to see the far end of the Slot Canyon that drains Poncho Wash that I pointed out a bend or two in the river ago. I follow the smooth curves of the canyon alternating left and right. Watching this video months after the flight, it feels almost dreamlike, but I can assure you I was totally wired and alert heading up the canyon. I knew I had made it through the main part of the swell when I saw the canyon walls in the distance begin to melt away. If you enjoyed this video, please join me in part 2, where I retrace my flight through the canyon back to the entrance. This time, knowing the winds were calm the entire length of the canyon and being freshly familiar with its snaking path, I was able to make the return flight at lower altitude, which does intensify the experience. It will be a lot of fun, and we'll see a few things we missed heading up Muddy Creek, including a herd of wild horses. You can find a link to part 2 above. If you like this video, please subscribe and share it with your friends. With your help, I hope I can get to the magic 1,000 YouTube subscribers number. And leave a comment. I really enjoy reading them all, and they do help me improve my videos. And come back here for more trike flying adventures at Jeff's Flight Log.